the RadioLink A560 3D profile plane. It's said that anyone can fly this. Can they? More roll rate. RadioLink contacted us and asked if we'd like to review one of their A560s, and full disclosure, at the time I had not heard of RadioLink or the A560, so we checked the internet and there are a lot of videos already out there on this airplane, a lot of reviews. We watched several of those just to see what we'd be getting ourselves into. It looked cool, so we thought we'd give one a try. The A560 comes in an attractive carrying case. It's very nicely done. There is a shoulder strap inside that you can use if you'd like to. That case is intended for storage and transport of the airplane, I believe. Obviously within you get the components to assemble the airplane, which are just a few. You get the 8-channel RadioLink transmitter and a USB charging cord for that. You get two 2-cell 600 milliamp LiPo packs, a USB charger for those. You get some extra servo arms, some extra prop saver rings. You get one extra prop. I'm actually on the extra prop because I slung the first one off trying to do a crankshaft or something like that, and I can't find it. So you get a screwdriver, which is all you need to assemble the plane. You get some extra strapping tape. I'm assuming that might be for repairs or rehinging. And you get a RadioLink keychain in the shape of the 560. There's a quick setup guide and a far more detailed instruction manual as well. The assembly of the A560 is very simple. There are very few components. They'll start you by having you remove the slotted fuselage vane, as they call it, from the top of the fuse. You'll slide the wing down into place and then slide that slotted fuselage vane back into place. There are 4 locking tabs underneath that lock the two into place. Next, you'll hook up your aileron push rods. Then you'll move back towards the tail, and there are some reinforcing rods that you need to hook from the lower part of the fuselage to the bottom of the horizontal. The gear simply slides in and snaps into place, and you install your prop with 2 of your prop saver rings. The A560 has a wingspan of 22.8 inches. It's 22 inches long. Our example weighs 6.1 ounces, ready to fly, with the batteries that come with it, which are 600 milliamp 2-cell LiPos. It has a T8S transmitter and an R8 XM receiver. One of the main features of the A560 is exactly how quick it is to get this thing assembled and together. It literally takes just a few minutes. All the electronics are pre-installed, very convenient and easy to get together. Another really big and probably the biggest feature of it is the BIME-A gyro flight controller. That has 6 modes, believe it or not, that are proportional and changeable with this tiny little transmitter. It has stabilize mode, gyro mode, manual mode, vertical multi-rotor mode, acrobat mode, and vertical fixed wing mode. Here is a list of the 6 flight modes available and a brief summation of what each one does. Pause this and check them out if you'd like. So when it comes to setting up the A560, the main manual has a lot of information, and I do mean a lot of information. So much so that it could be a bit intimidating to somebody new or somebody that's not very tech savvy. I think your experienced modeler, your tech savvy modelers are not going to have an issue with it. Now, to be fair, a lot of the things like the calibration of the transmitter, calibrating the gyro on the airplane, which is really just a simple matter of making sure the plane's in a specific position and that the transmitter's in a specific state when you plug the airplane up. So it's not difficult. Most of that stuff is done out of the box, and so this is just pretty much FYI as far as that. Now, we did have one issue with the plane after we did everything we're supposed to do to get everything calibrated. A couple of the control surfaces were not perfectly centered, which means that we had to adjust the push rods. The push rods are simply carbon fiber rods with clevises that are held on with a single Phillips head screw. When you loosen those and move the clevis up and down the rod to get it adjusted, When you tighten it back up, make sure that you just ever so slightly snug that up. Don't over tighten it or you will fray the carbon fiber rod and then you'll be in kind of a mess. So just be mindful of that. Now when it comes to flying this airplane, RadioLink boasts that it is beginner friendly and that beginner, intermediate, and advanced pilots can have success with this airplane and enjoy flying it. As we told you before, we checked out a lot of media on this airplane, and words that we heard repeated several times were anyone can fly this. Alrighty then. Well, we're going to show you our demo, and then after that we'll get back here, we'll give you our final thoughts, and we'll tell you what we think about that. Man. Touchy on the ailerons. So, clearly, if you're going to do anything gyroscopic, you probably should put 2 of the bands on to hold the prop on. We'll put the prop back on and give it another go. In gyro mode, as you can see, you have even more roll rate. And when I let go of it, nothing happens. It just keeps going in the direction that I send it until I correct. It's another thing, when the transmitter is close to the airplane, it kind of wigs out. I move it away and then I have control. That's what makes me feel a little bit antsy about trying to do a hover catch if it gets too close to the transmitter, I'm afraid I'm going to lose control of it. The wind has calmed down a great deal and it is much more manageable. Okay, we're back into aerobat mode, which gives us some self-leveling, so I can roll it, let it go, and it straightens itself up, as you can see there. And here, once again, I'm going to line it up with the runway, and then now all I'm doing is just modulating power. So it will technically almost land itself if you kind of know what you're doing. We'll talk more about this as a trainer and this idea that anyone can fly it when we get back to the shop. I'm going to put it back into gyro mode. Sorry, a lot of modes. And see if I can do one more hover catch and we'll call it a wrap. Hopefully getting that close to the transmitter, it doesn't quit on me. Wind's picked back up just a little bit. It's not bad, but could make this a bit more sketch. The ailerons are really, really sensitive. Sketch. Okay, one more try. I'm a glutton for punishment. This wind is really too high for this. Stabilize mode. Yep, so pitch and bank angle are limited. Can't get it to come all the way up. And when I bank it, that's as far as it can bank, and as soon as I let it go, rights itself. Okay, so this is vertical mode fixed wing. It should hover itself. All I should have to do is modulate the throttle. We got a little bit of wind, so it may drift some. There we go. So it's drifting because of the wind, but as you can clearly see, all I'm doing is modulating the throttle. Yeah, so a little bit of drift, but without that wind, I believe it would hold itself right in place, so not bad. So full disclosure, we didn't get the time with the A360 that I would have liked to really ring this thing out and get a lot of experience with it, with weather and with RadioLink, hoping that we could get something done in time for Black Friday and the sales that go on throughout that weekend through Cyber Monday. There just wasn't opportunity to put more than a few batteries through this thing. So we were still able to figure out that all of the flight modes work as advertised, so that's definitely a plus. I was impressed, especially with the vertical fixed wing mode. It's amazing that you can just sit there and modulate the throttle and the program will hover the airplane for you. That's pretty interesting. Also, the stabilized mode worked very well. That's a lot like what a lot of us would call safe, because that's what most of us are used to. It is a limited bank and pitch angle mode that centers the airplane and rights it for you when you let go of the gimbals, and that seemed to work very well, although it definitely allows quite a bit of bank and pitch, and the controls are just as sensitive in that mode as they are in any other mode. And that brings me to this transmitter. When it comes to flying this airplane for an experienced pilot, I flew it in the gyro mode mostly, and some in manual mode. Those would be the modes that an experienced 3D pilot would fly this airplane in. And I have to say that the ailerons, especially to me, were hypersensitive. Everything was pretty sensitive, but I found the ailerons to especially be a bit of a handful. Some of that has to do with the fact that this transmitter is small. Now, I will give it credit. The gimbals feel a lot more like a larger transmitter's gimbals. They're not cheap plastic looking things like they are in a lot of transmitters this size, so I will give them that. But just the size of it was a little bit of a challenge for me. Now, I respect the fact that this is what they wanted to offer with it, so you know, more power to RadioLink. There's a lot of capability in this little transmitter, but it will be a tough adjustment for pilots that have the level of experience that I do and the amount of hours on a standard transmitter that I have. It was just quite an adjustment. It would be much easier if we could adjust expo from the transmitter. There's an app that you can use to do things like that, but having to set an airplane up through flying, which is how we all do it if we really know what we're doing, you test it, make adjustments, take it up again, make adjustments from there, and usually in a few tries you have it dialed in where you want it. If you're having to use an app to do that, depending upon where your field is or where you're flying, you may or may not have a good enough signal to really utilize something like that on your phone. So it could be a real pain. In today's day and age, when it comes to more advanced airplanes, especially 3D airplanes, they are especially sensitive to setup. And every pilot is different. So they really need to make it so that you can make those electronic adjustments, things like expo, simple stuff like that, from the transmitter and not from an app. And worth noting, there are larger transmitters, more full-size transmitters that you can purchase that will bind to this airplane, so it will definitely feel more normal to you, but you still, even with those, to my knowledge, have to use the app to make adjustments. So we have to get to my main point of contention with the airplane, and that is the idea that it is beginner friendly, that it can be handled by beginner, intermediate, and advanced pilots. And frankly, I've heard that repeated. I've heard so many people say in media, anyone can fly this, not just RadioLink. And I don't agree with that at all. It has modes that are automatic. So if you are tech savvy and you can make your way through these modes, you can look like you know what you're doing. You can allow the program and the mode to fly the airplane for you. But when it comes to learning how to fly, and when you say beginner friendly, when the instructions say something about practice flying straight and level for a beginner, what that screams to me is trainer. Nothing in the RadioLink literature says trainer, but they allude to that strongly, and I just don't think this is a good trainer at all. It is, after all, a 3D profile foamy, and 3D planes are very, very sensitive. We've already talked about just how sensitive the ailerons are. It's pitchy, it yaws like crazy. It is for an experienced pilot. To be a good training plane, a beginner is going to have to be able to take the airplane out of the modes that are automatic, out of the stabilized mode, out of the vertical mode when you're doing hovers, which is something that no beginner is going to be doing on their own anyway. You're just trying to learn to get the airplane around. When you put it in gyro mode or manual mode and you're actually trying to learn how to fly, it's so sensitive to control inputs, it's going to be very difficult for someone new to learn how to fly on that. And in my mind, a trainer is the most important airplane that anyone gets in their entire RC career, because the first trainer that you get for someone trying this hobby out could very well be the thing that determines whether you'll stay in the hobby or have a bad experience and get out of it. And the simple truth is, as a trainer, I just don't think this is a very good airplane. It could be done way better. If RadioLink wants to make a trainer, I'm going to make some suggestions in a moment of exactly what I think they should do to do that. But this is one of those do-it-all airplanes where they're trying to sell you something that does everything, and the truth is, it can't do everything well. It can do some things well, it does other things poorly. And be a trainer is definitely something that this thing is not going to be good at. Now, I'm sure somebody has managed to fumble their way through learning how to fly with this, but if that person had an experience with an actual dedicated trainer, they would see and know how much easier it could have been. This is to the good folks at RadioLink. This is meant to be constructive and helpful, so I certainly hope that you take it that way. If you want to be able to teach people how to fly RC, you need to make a dedicated trainer, not a 3D profile foamy that supposedly does it all. It's just too complicated for somebody new, and it's way too sensitive and way too capable for somebody new. You only need two modes. You just keep it very simple. You need a stabilized mode where it will right itself when you let go of the gimbals, and pitch and bank angle is limited. It needs to have a gyro mode, which gives the pilot free rein, and you need to be able to switch between those two modes very easy. The 6 modes that you go through with the combination of positions on 2-3 position switches, it's very confusing, it's hard to keep up with, especially for somebody new, and it's very easy to bump these and get it out of the mode that you think you're in. So keep it simple and make the airplane docile. Make it a high wing. Give it smaller control surfaces, a lot less throw. Make it something that is not so sensitive to inputs and that is a lot more forgiving for somebody that knows nothing about how to fly an RC airplane, and you'll be well on your way. Make this the second plane. So there we have it. RadioLink has a neat piece of kit here. This is a very interesting airplane. Some of the automated modes, like the vertical mode, is very interesting. A lot of technology there, and it's cool to watch that stuff at work. It's a great time to be alive and be in the hobby. And there's a market for people that want that kind of airplane, something that has automated modes and can make you look like an absolute stud even if you haven't spent the hours and hours of practice that it takes to actually be one. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. When it comes to being a beginner-friendly airplane, I think for a beginner that actually wants to learn to fly, this is not the airplane for you. I think intermediate and advanced pilots that want to sport fly or fly a 3D profile foamy, you can handle this airplane just fine. It flies well and has the potential, if you download the app and really get it dialed into your liking, to fly even better. So I think it's definitely a good value for folks like that. We're going to put a link in the description where you can go and get one of these if you'd like to. RadioLink is running a special right now for Black Friday through Cyber Monday. 20% off the ready to fly is normally $220. It's now $176. So check it out if you'd like to put one of these in your hangar. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings.